The Vorthik battlecruiser Bone Render descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metal plague, its shadow swallowing entire cities as it carved a path toward the United Earth capital. Commander Kellyanne Voss pressed her face against the reinforced observation deck of Luna Station, watching humanity's homeworld burn below. Plasma bombardments erupted across continents in brilliant orange flowers of destruction, each bloom representing millions of lives snuffed out in seconds. "Mom." Incoming transmission from Admiral Harwick, reported Lieutenant Dex Murrow, his voice barely steady. The young officer's hands trembled as he worked the communications array, sweat beading on his dark skin despite the station's regulated temperature. Voss turned from the viewport, her steel gray eyes reflecting the distant fires. At 43, she had spent half her life in military service, but nothing had prepared her for the systematic extermination of her species. "Put him through." Admiral Harwick's weathered face materialized in the holographic display, his usual composed demeanor cracked like glass. Behind him, emergency lights bathed the command center of Earth Defense Platform 7 in hellish red. "Kellyanne, they breached the orbital defense grid. The Vorthik are demanding complete surrender within 6 hours, or they'll glass every remaining population center." Terms, Voss asked, though she already knew the answer would be unacceptable. "Unconditional servitude. Our military forces disbanded, our governments dissolved, our cultural identity erased." Harwick's jaw clenched. "They want us broken, Kellyanne, not just defeated, broken." The Vorthik had emerged from the Andromeda Spiral 3 years ago, a conquering empire that had absorbed dozens of civilizations. Their method was always the same, overwhelming force followed by cultural annihilation. They didn't just want worlds, they wanted the complete submission of spirit. "What's our status here?" Voss asked. The Luna Station's modest defensive capabilities were laughable against a force that had shattered Earth's primary fleet in 12 hours. "You have the Vengeful Ghost and 3 frigates, not exactly battle-ready against their dreadnoughts." Harwick paused, and something flickered in his eyes, a dangerous spark. "But you have something else. Kellyanne, Project Lazarus." Voss felt her blood chill. Project Lazarus had been classified at the highest levels, a theoretical weapons program that pushed the boundaries of accepted warfare. "Sir, the Ethics Committee voted. The Ethics Committee is dead, Commander. They died when the Vorthik turned Sao Paulo into a crater." Harwick leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The prototype is in your cargo bay. Dr. Elena Vasquez is already aboard to assist with deployment." Lieutenant Murrow looked up from his console, face pale. "Ma'am, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from Earth's surface. 12 Vorthik hunters, closing fast." Through the viewport, Voss could see them rising, sleek predatory vessels that moved with organic fluidity, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent threat displays. The Vorthik had evolved from apex predators on their homeworld, and their technology reflected that heritage. Every ship was designed to inspire terror. "Admiral, they'll be here in 20 minutes, Voss said. "Then you have 20 minutes to decide if humanity dies quietly or fighting." Harwick's image began to flicker as electromagnetic interference from the bombardment intensified. "Kellyanne, they took our flag from the Capitol building today, ripped it down and burned it in front of the survivors." The transmission cut to static. Voss stood in the sudden silence, feeling the weight of impossible choice. Around her, the Luna Station crew, one of 7 souls, waited for orders that could determine whether humanity would be remembered as victims or warriors. Dr. Vasquez appeared at the command deck entrance, a slight woman in her 50s with brilliant green eyes that held terrible knowledge in her hands. She carried a data pad containing specifications for a weapon that could change everything, or damn what remained of the species. "Commander," she said quietly, "we need to talk." The Vorthik hunter flesh ripper broke Luna Station's defense perimeter like a shark through a school of fish. Its commander, Ward Castexmer, flexed his 6 arms in anticipation as his ship's bioneural targeting systems locked onto the pathetic human orbital platform. "These mammals still resist," he rumbled to his bridge crew, mandibles clicking with amusement. "Their homeworld burns, their fleets scatter like debris, yet they bare teeth at us." Commander Voss watched the alien vessels approach through Luna Station's tactical display, her heart hammering against her ribs. The Vorthik ship was twice the size of her command station, its organic-looking hull bristling with weapons that pulsed like living tissue. "All hands, battle stations," she announced over the comm. "This is not a drill." Dr. Vasquez gripped the Project Lazarus data pad tighter, Killian, if we're going to use it, now would be the time to decide. What exactly are we talking about? Lieutenant Murrow asked, his voice tight with fear and curiosity. Vasquez hesitated, then activated the pad's display. Holographic schematics filled the arrow weapon unlike anything in conventional arsenals. Nanophage deployment system. Self-replicating molecular disassemblers designed to consume organic matter. At the cellular level. Jesus Christ, Murrow whispered. That's a war crime by every standard we've ever held, Voss finished. It's also potentially our only chance. The Flesh Ripper opened fire. Plasma bolts tore through space, each one capable of vaporizing a city block. Luna Station shields flared and buckled under the assault, emergency klaxons wailing as power conduits overloaded throughout the facility. Shields at 40%, reported Chief Engineer Rakesh Nanda, his usually calm demeanor cracking. We can't take much more of this. Voss keyed the comm to the vengeful ghost. Luna Station single destroyer escort. Captain Reeves, engage. The Hunter. Buy us time. Copy that. Commander, Ghost is going weapons hot. The destroyer leaped forward, its fusion engines painting space with blue fire. Captain Marcus Reeves had earned his command through 15 years of border conflicts. But nothing had prepared him for Vorthic biotechnology. The enemy's ship seemed to anticipate his every move, twisting away from missile salvos with predatory. Grace.thx single quotes Mar watched the human destroyers attack with professional interest. Crude but determined, their tactical doctrine shows adaptation potential. He gestured to his weapons officer, disable their engines. I want prisoners for the breeding programs. Bioelectric lances speared through space, each one a concentrated beam of living energy that sought out and consumed electronic systems. The vengeful ghost shuddered as the alien weapons tore through its hull, leaving organic growths that spread like cancer through the ship's infrastructure. Ghost Actual, we're losing structural integrity, Reeves reported, his voice strained. The bastards' weapons are eating my ship from the inside out. Dr. Vasquez grabbed Voss's arm. You've seen what they do to conquered species, the Eltarians. Were reduced to livestock. The Kepler colonies became breeding stock for their warrior castes. Is preserving our moral high ground worth watching humanity become cattle? Another plasma barrage hammered Luna Station. This time, the shields failed. Completely. Atmosphere began venting from Section C and D as hull breaches opened like wounds. 3 crew members died instantly when observation deck 2 imploded. Killian. Admiral Harwick's voice crackled through the emergency comm channel. The Vorthic are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're showing live feeds of the processing centers they've established in major cities. There, his voice broke. They're sorting survivors by genetic fitness. The tactical display showed the vengeful. Ghost listing badly, his engine section dark. Captain Reeves' ship had maybe minutes before total system failure. The 3 frigates were still 6 hours out, and by then, Luna Station would be a drifting tomb. Voss looked at the Project Lazarus schematics, then at the faces of her crew, young men and women who had signed up to defend humanity, not to cross lines that should never be crossed. But the Vorthic weren't offering them the luxury of moral purity. Dr. Vasquez, how long to deploy the nanophage? She asked quietly. 15 minutes to initialize the delivery system. The weapon itself is already loaded in Torpedo Tube 3. Dexmer's voice suddenly filled Luna Station's command center, transmitted on all frequencies with contemptuous ease. Human Commander, you will surrender immediately. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for integration into the Vorthic biological collective. Resistance will result in unnecessary suffering. Voss stepped forward, her voice carrying across the bridge with quiet steel. This is Commander Killian Voss of the United Earth Defense Force. You want us to surrender? Come and take us. She cut the transmission and turned to Vasquez. Initialize Project Lazarus. If we're crossing this line, we're crossing it all the way. The die was cast. Humanity's last moral boundary was about to be shattered by humanity's own hand. The nanophage torpedo streaked through the void like a silver needle, its payload invisible, but devastating. Dr. Vasquez watched the tactical display with a mixture of scientific fascination and moral horror as the weapon approached the Flesh Ripper. Impact in 30 seconds, Lieutenant Murrow reported, his voice hollow. Around him, Luna Station's bridge crew watched in tense silence as humanity prepared to unleash something that could never be taken back. Warcast Dexmer observed the approaching projectile with mild interest. Human weapons had proven, largely, ineffective against Vorthic bioarmor. And this appeared to be another desperate conventional attack. Defensive screens will absorb it, he told his crew. Continue preparing boarding pods. The nanofish torpedo struck the flesh ripper's hull and seemed to simply dissolve on contact, leaving no visible damage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Exmer noticed his biosensors registering anomalous readings from the impact site. Sir, his tactical officer reported, mandibles twitching with confusion. I'm reading cellular disruption in hull section 7 through 12. The bioarmor is decomposing. Commander Voss gripped her command chair as she watched the alien ship. Through Luna Station's telescopes, where the nanophage had made contact, the Vorthic vessel's living hull was beginning to break down at the molecular level. What started as a small discolored patch began spreading outward like accelerated rot. It's working, Dr. Vasquez whispered. But her voice carried no triumph, only the weight of what they had done. The nanophage spread across the flesh ripper's hull with terrifying efficiency. The Vorthic bioship's own living systems became vectors for the weapon's propagation, carrying molecular death through every organic component. Within minutes, entire sections of the Hunter began dissolving into their component atoms. Exmer felt his first moment of true fear in decades of warfare. Emergency protocols, seal all bioneural connections, but it was too late. The nanophage had already infiltrated the ship's nervous system, and the flesh ripper was dying from within. Sir, we're losing structural integrity across all decks, his engineering officer reported, his voice rising to a panicked shriek. The dissolution is spreading to our life support systems through Luna Station's viewports. Voss watched the Vorthic Hunter literally fall apart. Massive sections of hull peeled away like diseased skin, revealing the ship's interior organs, bioneural networks, living weapon systems, crew compartments all breaking down into gray slurry that drifted away in space. My God, Lieutenant, Merle breathed. We're watching 300 beings die. 300 beings who were about to enslave our entire species, Voss replied. But her voice lacked conviction. The nanophage was more horrific than any weapon humanity had ever conceived, and they had just used it. The dying screams of the Vorthic crew echoed across all communication frequencies as their ship's bioneural network transmitted their agony before finally dissolving. Exmer's final transmission was a mix of rage and something that might have been respect. Clever mammals, you have made yourselves into monsters. The flesh ripper collapsed in on itself, its massive bulk compacting into a sphere of decomposing organic matter, before finally dispersing into atomic particles, where a warship had been. Only empty space remained. Dr. Vasquez ran calculations on her data pad, her face growing pale. Kellyan, the nanophage is designed to be self-limiting, but at this deployment concentration, it might remain active for up to 6 hours in suitable organic material, meaning any Vorthic who come into contact with the dispersed particles could become carriers. The weapon could spread beyond our intended target. Admiral Harwick's voice crackled through the emergency comm. Luna Station, we're reading massive Vorthic fleet movements throughout the system. They know what you did, and they're not happy about it. The tactical display lit up with new contacts, a full Vorthic battle group dropping out of hyperspace near Jupiter, 12 dreadnoughts, 24 hunters, and a massive bioship that the computer classified as a hive-class carrier. The alien fleet began accelerating toward Earth with predatory determination. Fleet composition analysis suggests over 50,000 Vorthic warriors, Merle reported. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's a declaration of extermination. No more offers of surrender, no more terms. They want us all dead. Voss felt the weight of command crushing down on her shoulders. In trying to save humanity, had she doomed them to an even worse fate? The Vorthic had been willing to enslave. Then before now they seemed intent on complete genocide. Dr. Vasquez, how much nanophage do we have remaining? Enough for perhaps 20 more deployments. But Kellyan, Vasquez's voice carried desperate urgency. The Vorthic are already adapting. Look at their formation. The alien fleet had arranged itself in a dispersed pattern, individual ships maintaining kilometers of separation. They had learned from the flesh ripper's death, and were taking precautions against weapon contamination. Captain Reeves' voice came through the comm from the crippled, vengeful ghost. Commander, my ship's still functional, barely, but I can make one more run if you need it. Through the viewport, Voss could see the destroyer listing heavily, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches. Half of Reeves' crew was already dead, and the ship wouldn't survive another engagement. Negative, Ghost. Stand down and prepare for evacuation. With respect, ma'am, that's not happening. My people died for something today. I'd rather make it count than run. The Vorthic battle group was still hours away, but their intent was clear. They would sterilize every human world, every station, every ship. The nanophage had escalated this conflict beyond any possibility of negotiation or surrender. Voss looked around her bridge at the faces of men and women who had crossed a moral line with her. There was no going back now, only forward, deeper, into the darkness they had chosen. All stations, prepare for extended combat operations. She announced, if we're going to be monsters, we might as well be effective ones. The Vorthic hive carrier soul devourer dominated the tactical display like a cancer made manifest. Fleet Master Vexthal, Supreme Commander of the Extermination Force, studied the data feeds from the destroyed Flesh Ripper with cold analytical fury. The molecular weapon the humans had deployed represented a paradigm shift in warfare, one that demon did immediate and brutal response. Fleet Dispersal Pattern Omega, he commanded, his bio-enhanced voice carrying across the carrier's vast bridge. All vessels maintain minimum separation of 5 kilometers. Deploy hunter swarms for close engagement. Commander Voss watched the alien fleet's tactical adjustment with growing dread. The Vorthic had learned from their first encounter with the nanophage, and their new formation would make mass deployment nearly impossible. Worse, they were releasing thousands of smaller attack craft biofighters that could swarm Luna Station. Like angry insects. Double quotes Dr. Vasquez, can we modify the nanophage for area deployment? Voss asked. The scientist shook her head grimly, not without losing target specificity. We risk creating a self-sustaining chain reaction that could consume all organic matter. In this system, including us. Lieutenant Moreau looked up from his sensor station. Face pale, ma'am, I'm tracking over 3,000 fire-class contacts. They'll reach us in 40 minutes. Captain Reeves' voice crackled through the calm from the dying vengeful ghost. Commander, my tactical officer has an idea that might buy you time. It's not pretty. I'm listening, Marcus. The nanophage particles are still dispersed along the Flesh Ripper's former position. If I ram my ship through that debris field and then kamikaze into their fighter swarm. Voss felt her stomach drop. Marcus, no. That's a war crime and a suicide mission, I know, but it might contaminate enough of their fighters to thin the swarm. Reeves' voice carried no hesitation. Kellyan, my ship is already dead. My crew voted. We want to make it count. On the tactical display, the vengeful ghost began moving toward the contaminated space where the Vorthic hunter had dissolved. The destroyer's engines flickered and strained, but Captain Reeves pushed his dying ship forward with desperate determination. Fleet Master Vexthal watched the human vessel's trajectory with professional interest. Suicide attack, predictable, but potentially effective. Order Fighter Group Alpha to maintain separation from the human destroyer. But Reeves had anticipated this response. Instead of charging directly at the fighter swarm, the vengeful ghost positioned itself in the nanophage debris field and began venting atmosphere mixed with contaminated particles. The destroyer became a spreading cloud of molecular death, carried forward by its own momentum toward the approaching Vorthic fighters. All fighters, evasive maneuvers, Vexthal commanded, but it was too late. The nanophage cloud expanded faster than the biofighters could retreat, and contaminated particles began adhering to their organic hulls. Voss watched in horror and fascination as dozens of Vorthic fighters began dissolving mid-flight. The graceful biocraft literally fell apart as the nanophage consumed their living systems, pilots screaming across all frequencies as their ships became their tombs. Ghost impact in 10 seconds, Moreau reported. The vengeful ghost slammed into the densest part of the fighter formation at maximum velocity. The explosion was brilliant and brief, but the nanophage contamination spread through the wreckage like wildfire. Within minutes, over 100 Vorthic fighters had been reduced to atomic particles. Fleet Master Vexthal felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest: respect for an enemy's tactical innovation. The humans were turning their own moral compromise into a weapon more devastating than any conventional armament. Signal all battle groups, he commanded. Implement Purification Protocol 7. No more close engagement. We glass everything from maximum range. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her calculations with growing alarm. Kellyan, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across their fleet. They're charging some kind of planet-killer weapons. How long do we have? 12 hours until they can begin systematic bombardment of Earth. but they'll start with outlying stations and colonies first. Luna Station will be targeted within 4 hours. Admiral Harwick's transmission cut through the static-filled comm channel. All remaining Earth Defense Forces, this is Admiral Harwick with emergency authorization. Omega Black, Project Lazarus is now fully authorized for unlimited deployment. Rules of engagement are suspended. Command discretion for all weapons of mass destruction. Voss stared at the authorization code scrolling across her screen. Omega Black meant total war, the complete abandonment of any ethical constraints in favor of species survival. It was humanity's official declaration that they would rather become monsters than become extinct. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Murrow said quietly, "incoming transmission from the Vorthic fleet. They're broadcasting something." The main display, filled with Fleet Master Vextal S imposing form. The alien commander's bio-enhanced features showed a mixture of respect and implacable hatred. "Human warriors," he began, his translated voice carrying across Luna Station's bridge. "You have shown admirable tactical innovation. Your molecular weapon represents significant advancement in warfare technology. Therefore, we will honor you with clean death, rather than absorption into our breeding programs." He leaned forward, mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile. "Your species will be remembered as the first to force the Vorthic to abandon conquest in favor of extermination. This is not victory, it is mutual destruction. When your homeworld burns, know that you chose this path." The transmission ended, leaving Luna Station's bridge in tense silence. Dr. Vasquez gripped her data pad with white knuckles. "Kellyan, we have enough nanophage for 19 more deployments. Against a dispersed fleet of that size, we might destroy 30% of their forces before they overwhelm us. Then we better make those deployments count." Voss replied, "All hands, prepare for total warfare. We're about to find out what humanity becomes when we abandon everything we used to be." The moral event horizon was far behind them now. Ahead lay only the terrible mathematics of extinction. The first Vorthic dreadnought Bone Render opened fire at maximum range, its bioplasma cannons hurling miniature suns across the void. Each projectile carried enough energy to crack continents. But Fleet Master Vextal had chosen his targets carefully. Luna Station would die slowly, piece by piece, to prevent any possibility of nanophage contamination. Commander Voss felt the station shudder as the plasma barrage struck Luna's defensive asteroids, vaporizing megatons of rock and metal in brilliant explosions. The artificial gravity fluctuated, and emergency lighting bathed the command center in hellish red. "All defensive platforms, return fire," she commanded, knowing the gesture was futile. Luna Station's conventional weapons were gnats against the Vorthic battle fleet. Lieutenant Murrow's hands flew across his console as he coordinated the station's pathetic defensive response. "Mom, platforms 7 and 12 are gone. Direct hits. No survivors." Through the viewports, Voss could see the expanding clouds of superheated gas that had been defensive installations moments before. Each platform had housed 50 personnel gone in seconds, atomized by weapons that turned matter into energy. Dr. Vasquez worked frantically at her nanophage deployment systems, sweat beading on her forehead despite the climate control. "I can get firing solutions on 3 of their dreadnoughts, but they're maintaining separation. We'll only get partial contamination. Do it anyway. Every ship we kill is fewer guns pointed at Earth." The first nanophage torpedo launched from Luna Station's modified missile tube, its silvery form cutting through space toward the dreadnought flesh harvester. The Vorthic ship's biosensors detected the incoming projectile and activated defensive screens, but the molecular weapon was designed to penetrate conventional barriers. Warcast Drexmar commanded the flesh harvester with the confidence of someone who had conquered 17 star systems. When the human torpedo struck his ship's port bio-armor, he expected another ineffective conventional explosion. Instead, he watched in growing horror as his vessel began dissolving. From the impact point outward, emergency biosil protocols. He roared, but the nanophage was already spreading through the ship's living nervous system. Evacuate contaminated sections. The dreadnought's crew scrambled for escape pods as their ship literally rotted around them. Bioneural conduits turned to gray slurry, weapon systems collapsed into component atoms, and the vessel's massive fusion heart began consuming itself. Within minutes, the flesh harvester imploded, taking 900 Vorthic warriors with it. Fleetmaster Vextal watched his subordinate's death with cold calculation. The human molecular weapon was devastatingly effective, but it required direct contact to spread. All vessels, maintain current dispersal, continue bombardment. Accept losses as necessary. The second nanophage torpedo found its mark on the heavy cruiser Soul Ripper, and again the horrific molecular dissolution began. This time, however, the Vorthic crew managed to evacuate before total hull failure. 300 warriors fled in escape pods, but their ship joined the growing cloud of atomic debris. Dr. Vasquez launched the third torpedo toward the battlecruiser Bone Grinder, but this time the Vorthic were ready. Point defense systems mechanical, rather than biological, intercepted the weapon before impact. The nanophage detonated harmlessly in space, its deadly payload dispersing widely to achieve effective concentration. They're adapting, Vasquez reported grimly, mechanical defenses against biocontamination weapons. The Vorthic fleet continued its methodical bombardment. Platform after platform died under focused plasma fire, each explosion marking the deaths of dozens of human defenders. Luna Station shields collapsed under the sustained assault, and hull breaches began venting atmosphere into space. Section C through G are sealed off, Chief Engineer Nana reported, but we've lost life support to the lower decks. 17 casualties and counting. Lieutenant Moreau looked up from his console with desperate urgency. Ma'am, incoming priority transmission from Earth Defense Platform 3. Admiral Harwick is launching the home fleet. The tactical display updated to show humanity's last major naval force accelerating out of Earth. Orbit 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and the massive dreadnought Terra's Wrath. It was a fraction of what Earth's fleet had been before the Vorthic arrived, but every ship bristled with hastily installed nanophage delivery systems. Admiral Harwick's face appeared on the calm display, his expression grim with terrible resolve. Kellyan, we're coming in hot. Every ship in this fleet is loaded with molecular weapons and prepared for suicide attacks if necessary, sir. The Vorthic have adapted their defenses, I know, but we've adapted too. Harwick's smile held no warmth. If they want to fight at range, we'll bring the range to them. All ships are rigged for ramming attacks. We're going to take as many of those bastards with us as possible. The home fleet spread into attack formation, each ship angling toward a different Vorthic vessel. Fleet Master Vextel recognized the human tactical shift immediately. Desperation. Attacks meant to cause maximum damage before inevitable defeat. Accelerate bombardment schedule, he commanded. Destroy the human fleet before they can close to effective range. The space around Luna Station became a hell of energy weapons and dying ships. The destroyer Invincible took a direct plasma hit and broke apart, its hull vaporizing in a chain reaction that lit up the void. The cruiser Defiant managed to launch 3 nanophage torpedoes before bioelectric lances tore through its engine section, leaving it drifting and burning. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded the heavy cruiser Righteous Fury with the desperate skill of someone fighting for her species' survival. Her ship had taken multiple hits and was venting atmosphere from 6 hull breaches, but she pressed her attack run against the Vorthic battleship. Death's Head, all power to forward shields, she ordered as plasma bolts hammered her vessel, ramming speed. The Righteous Fury slammed into the Death's Head at 12% of light speed, both ships disappearing in a fusion explosion that briefly outshone Luna's sun. The detonation vaporized everything within a 5-kilometer radius, taking 1,500 Vorthic and 400 humans with it. Commander Voss watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and horror. Humanity was fighting with a ferocity that impressed even their alien enemies. But the cost was devastating. Ship after ship died in brilliant explosions, each one representing hundreds of lives lost. Status report, she demanded. Home fleet is down to 8 ships, Moreau reported, but we've destroyed or damaged 12 Vorthic vessels. The nanophage is still effective when we can deliver it. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her calculations with haunted eyes. We have enough molecular weapons for 4 more deployments. After that, we're down to conventional armaments. Through the viewport, the battle raged on, humanity's children dying by the thousands in defense of a species that had already compromised everything it once stood for. The question was no longer whether they would win, but whether anything recognizably human would survive the victory. The Terra's Wrath, humanity's last dreadnought, limped through the debris field that had once been the home fleet. Admiral Harwick stood on his shattered bridge, half his face burned from a plasma conduit explosion, watching his species' final gambit unfold on screens flickering with battle. Damage, sir. Hull integrity is down to 30%, reported his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park. We've got fires on 17 decks and total system failures in the forward sections. Harwick nodded grimly. His flagship carried the last large-scale nanophage deployment system, and he intended to make it count. Around him, the space near Luna Station was littered with the radioactive remains of both fleet's human and Vorthic ships reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Fleet Master Vexthal observed the approaching human dreadnought from the command throne of his hive carrier Soul Devourer. The massive bioship pulsed with organic energy, its living hull breathing in the vacuum of space, despite losing a third of his fleet to the human molecular weapons. He felt satisfaction at the tactical situation. Status of remaining human forces? He inquired. Luna Station maintains minimal function. Their dreadnought approaches with significant battle damage. 3 frigates remain operational at extreme range, his tactical coordinator reported. Human resistance capability is assessed at less than 5%. Commander Voss stood in Luna Station's command center, which now resembled a bunker more than a bridge. Emergency lighting cast everything in bloody red, and the deck plates vibrated continuously from stress fractures. Throughout the station's superstructure, half her crew was dead, and the other half showed the hollow-eyed exhaustion of people who had seen too much. Dr. Vasquez, status on our remaining nanophage supplies? 2 torpedoes left, the scientist replied, her voice hoarse from breathing recycled air thick with smoke. But Kellyan, I'm reading something unusual from the Vorthic hive carrier. Its biosignatures are different from their other ships. Lieutenant Murrow, his left arm in an improvised sling, looked up from his damaged console. Man, I'm detecting massive organic activity within that carrier. It's not just a ship, it's some kind of living entity. The tactical display revealed the truth that chilled every human observer. The Soul Devourer wasn't simply constructed from biomaterials like other Vorthic vessels. It was a massive organism in its own right, a spaceborne creature that the aliens had transformed into a living weapon. Its neural network stretched for kilometers, and within its biomass, thousands of Vorthic warriors moved through arteries and chambers like antibodies in a cosmic bloodstream. If we could contaminate that thing with nanophage, Dr. Vasquez began, then stopped as the implications became clear. It would die. Voss finished. All of it. The ship, the crew, everything. Admiral Harwick's transmission crackled through the damaged comm system. Luna Station. This is Terra's wrath. We're making our final attack run. Whatever you're going to do with those last 2 torpedoes, now would be the time. Through the viewport, Voss could see the Terra's wrath accelerating toward the Vorthic carrier, its massive bulk trailing atmosphere and debris from dozens of hull breaches. The dreadnought's plasma cannons fired continuously, each shot drawing power from life support systems in a desperate bid to clear a path through the enemy's defensive screens. Fleet Master Vexthal watched the human ships approach with professional interest. Admirable determination. Signal all hunters to intercept. I want that dreadnought destroyed before it can deploy its molecular weapons. Vorthic biofighters swarmed toward the Terra's wrath like a plague of metal insects. Their bioelectric weapons tore through the dreadnought's weakened shields, setting fires throughout the human ship's superstructure. But Admiral Harwick's crew had prepared for this moment. All hands, abandon ship. Harwick commanded, set collision course for the hive carrier. Full nanophage deployment on impact. Escape pods began launching from the dying dreadnought, but many of the crew chose to remain at their stations. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to abandon their posts now. The Terra's wrath became a ghost ship crewed by volunteers who had chosen death over retreat. Dr. Vasquez armed Luna Station's last 2 nanophage torpedoes with shaking hands. Kellyan, if I target the hive carrier's neural centers, the weapon might propagate through its entire nervous system, but the contamination could spread to any organic matter in a 50-kilometer radius, including the escape pods from Terra's wrath, including everything. The nanophage won't distinguish between human and Vorthic organic material. Once it achieves that level of concentration, Voss felt the weight of command crushing down on her shoulders. To kill the Vorthic hive carrier, she would have to sacrifice Admiral Harwick and everyone who had chosen to stay with their ship. The mathematics of extinction allowed no room for sentiment. Fire both torpedoes, she ordered. Target the carrier's primary neural clusters. The nanophage weapon streaked through space as the Terra's wrath completed its final approach. Fleet Master Vexthal realized late what the humans intended: not just a ramming attack, but a coordinated molecular assault designed to kill his living flagship from within. Emergency bioisolation protocols, he commanded, but the hive carrier's own nervous system became the vector for its destruction. The first nanophage torpedo struck the Soul Devourer's forward sensory ray, and the molecular weapon began its terrible work. Unlike the smaller Vortex ships, the hive carrier's massive bioneural network provided unlimited pathways for contamination spread. The nanophage raced through organic conduits at the speed of nerve impulses, consuming everything in its path. Admiral Harwick felt his ship shudder as the Terra's wrath penetrated the hive carrier's outer bioarmor. Around him, the bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency, pushing their dying vessel deeper into the alien organism's living flesh. Hull breach on all decks. Commander Park reported, "We're inside their biostructure, deploying final nanophage payload." The Dreadnought's last molecular weapon detonated within the hive carrier's heart, seeding the massive organism with trillions of self-replicating disassemblers. The Soul Devourer began dying from within, its own circulatory system carrying destruction to every cell in its kilometers-long body. Fleet Master Vexel felt his flagship's death agony through the bioneural interface that connected him to the living ship. The creature's pain became his pain, its terror his terror. For the first time in his warrior's life, he understood what it meant to be prey. All remaining ships withdraw to minimum safe distance, he commanded, even as his throne began dissolving. Beneath him, prepare for carrier organism death spasm. The hive carrier's death was a spectacle of cosmic horror. The massive creature convulsed in its final moments. Bioelectric discharges arcing between its dissolving neural networks. Thousands of Vorthic warriors died as their living ship became their tomb, consumed by humanity's molecular plague. Dr. Vasquez watched the readings with scientific fascination and moral revulsion. The nanophage contamination is spreading faster than our models predicted. The carrier's own biosystems are accelerating the weapon's propagation. Lieutenant Moreau looked up from his console with grim satisfaction. "Ma'am, I'm reading massive secondary explosions throughout the Vorthic fleet. The carrier's death spasm is taking out ships that were too close." Commander Voss stood amid the wreckage of Luna Station's command center, watching humanity's greatest moral compromise achieve its intended result. The Soul Devourer collapsed in on itself as its biostructure lost cohesion, taking Fleet Master Vexel and 8,000 Vorthic warriors into atomic dissolution. But the cost had been equally devastating. The Terra's Wrath and her crew were gone, consumed by the same nanophids that had killed the enemy flagship. Admiral Harwick's final transmission echoed through the static. "Tell them we kept the flag flying." The surviving Vorthic ships began withdrawing, their formation broken and their command structure shattered. They had come to exterminate humanity and found instead a species willing to become monsters in defense of their children. It was a lesson that would echo through their empire for generations to come. 3 months after the Battle of Luna Station, Commander Kelly and Voss stood before the newly constructed memorial wall in New Geneva, Earth's temporary capital. 10 million names were etched into black granite human casualties from the Vorthic War. Her own name should have been among them, but survival carried its own burden. The wall bore Admiral Harwick's final message in letters of gold. "Tell them, we kept the flag flying." Below it, a smaller inscription read, "They took our flag, but it still burned in every heart." Dr. Elena Vasquez joined her at the memorial, walking with a cane that bore testimony to injuries sustained during Luna Station's evacuation. The scientist's brilliant green eyes had lost their fire, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had seen her life's work become an instrument of unprecedented destruction. "The Galactic Council wants to interview us again," Vasquez said quietly. "They're drafting new accords regarding molecular weapons." Voss nodded without enthusiasm. The surviving alien civilizations had been horrified by humanity's deployment of nanophage technology. Some called for immediate quarantine of human space. Others demanded complete disarmament. None seemed to understand that humanity had crossed moral boundaries not from malice, but from the simple desire to continue existing. "What do you tell them when they ask if we regret it?" Vasquez asked. "The truth, that we regret the necessity, but not the choice." The nanophage had proven devastatingly effective against Vorthic biotechnology, but its deployment had fundamentally altered humanity's position in the galaxy. They were no longer seen as a young species to be guided or protected, but as a potential threat that had demonstrated willingness to weaponize extinction itself. Lieutenant Dex Moreau, now promoted to commander and bearing scars from the Luna Station evacuation, approached with a data pad. His left hand was cybernetic, a replacement for what he'd lost during the final battle. "Man, intelligence reports from the Vorthic territories their empire is fragmenting. The warrior castes are demanding answers about how a primitive species managed to kill a hive carrier. Voss reviewed the intelligence summary with professional interest. The Vorthik had built their empire on the assumption of biological superiority, that their living ships and organic technology made them invincible. Humanity's molecular weapons had shattered that assumption, causing a cascade of rebellions. Throughout their subject worlds, the Kepler colonies have declared independence, Moreau continued. They're using captured nanophage samples to dissolve Vorthik garrison ships. The Altarians have started their own uprising. It's spreading across their entire spiral arm. Dr. Vasquez closed her eyes, seeing the implications clearly. We didn't just save humanity. We gave every enslaved species in the galaxy a weapon to free themselves. At what cost? Voss asked. Every world that deploys nanophage becomes capable of destroying entire biospheres. We've created a galaxy where any species with the knowledge can commit genocide at the molecular level. The memorial wall reflected their faces in its polished surface. 3 humans who had helped save their species by becoming something their species had never intended to be. Heroes or monsters, depending on perspective. Commander Sarah Chen, formerly Lieutenant Chen of the destroyed frigate Resolute, joined their somber gathering. She had been reassigned to Earth Defense Command, one of the few remaining officers with actual combat experience against Vorthik bioships. The new fleet construction is ahead of schedule, she reported. Every ship is being equipped with nanophage delivery systems. The Admiralty wants our species ready for defensive deterrence within 2 years. Voss understood the euphemism. Humanity was building a fleet designed around molecular weapons, preparing for a galaxy that now saw them as equals and destructive potential rather than subjects for conquest or protection. A child's voice cut through their conversation, a young girl asking her parent about the names on the wall. Why did so many people have to die, Daddy? The parent's answer was careful, measured, because sometimes being good isn't enough to protect the people you love. Sometimes you have to be strong, even when being strong means doing terrible things. Dr. Vasquez watched the child's face as she processed this answer, seeing innocence confront the harsh mathematics of survival. That little girl will grow up in a universe where molecular weapons exist, she said quietly, where any species can dissolve any other at the cellular level. What kind of galaxy have we created? One where humanity still exists, Voss replied. The Vorthik gave us a choice, extinction or transformation. We chose transformation, Commander. Moreau pulled up additional intelligence reports on his data pad. Ma'am, there's something else. Deep space monitoring stations are detecting new signals from beyond the galactic rim. The pattern suggests another expansionist empire, possibly larger than the Vorthik. Voss felt a familiar cold weight settle in her stomach. How long until first contact? Analysts estimate 5 to 10 years. The cycle would begin again, humanity facing extinction, forced to choose between moral purity and species survival. But this time, they would not be unprepared innocents hoping for peaceful resolution. They were a species that had already crossed every line, abandoned every principle, weaponized the building blocks of life itself. As the sun set over New Geneva, Voss looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the nanophage was spreading through former Vorthik territories, carried by liberated species who had learned that freedom sometimes required becoming monsters. Somewhere else, new threats were moving toward human space, drawn by the electromagnetic signatures of a civilization that had proven its willingness to fight. The flag is still flying, she said quietly, echoing Admiral Harwick's final transmission. Dr. Vasquez nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. The flag they had saved was not the colorful cloth that had once flown above Earth's capital. That physical symbol had burned with the building. The flag that survived was something more fundamental, the stubborn human refusal to accept extinction, regardless of the moral cost. Commander Chen checked her chronometer. Mom, the Council of Species meeting begins in 2 hours. They want final testimony about Project Lazarus. Voss straightened her uniform and walked away from the memorial wall. Behind her, 10 million names caught the last rays of sunlight. Humans who had died so that humanity could live. They had kept faith with the dead by becoming something the dead might not have recognized. The flag still flew, darker now, but unbroken. It burned in every heart that chose survival over surrender, victory over virtue. In a galaxy that had tried to extinguish humanity's light, they had chosen to become the fire that consumed everything else. They had won. The question that would define their species' future was simple. What would they become now that winning required abandoning everything they had once believed themselves to be?